Good morning, everyone here, and good morning, Gurudas sir. We are really
Good morning.
privileged. Good morning, sir. So we are really privileged to have you over here to give the students and insights related to this a very interesting and important topic, that is economics and ecology. And I'm sure students will be really getting the insights related to this topic, and mainly because these are the engineering students, the professional course they are pursuing. So probably this will really help them to develop an understanding as to when they are progressing for their future career. Then with the kind of mindset they would be able to develop through your lecture, I guess that will really take them ahead in regards to having a sustainable development. That is what I feel. So thank you so much, Gurdas sir, for accepting our invitation and for being over here. Students, now I will just introduce you to our chief guest, the guest speaker here. Gurdas Nulkar sir has completed his PhD in industrial sustainability. He's basically a mechanical engineer, and he has pursued his studies in economics. He's a professor and head of the Symbiosis Center for Climate Change and Sustainability. He is on the board of Ecological Society, Pune. Gurudas sir was the Endeavour Fellow of Government of Australia and the Sir Ratan Tata Fellow at the Institute for Social and Economic Change, Bangalore. He has authored 3 books. His Marathi book, Anartha Shastra, has received the C.D. Deshmukh Maharashtra State Literary Award for Economic Literature. Sir is working on the river restoration projects and has worked with PMRDA and on ecological aspects in Pune metropolitan region, and was an expert on the panel of United Nations ESCAP project for building urban economic resilience in Pune city. And another thing of him is, like, I'm really very fortunate to get associated with him. He has been invited by various I mean to say, Maji Vasundhara Abhiyan, as you must have come across this particular Abhiyan which is going on in our state. So he has been called for actually giving them the guidance in regards to how the sustainable development, how the environmental what we can say things can be assured, various environmental issues can be addressed, and how he can guide, he can instruct the people over there, people in various regions, so that they can work on these areas. And also, one more very important thing, because of which I really felt that I should invite him over here. That is because he is having a great oratory skills, and I'm sure that you will really love listening to him. So thank you so much, sir. With this, I'll just hand over to you for your further for the actual lecture. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much. I hope I am audible and visible.
Yes, sir. You are audible and you are visible.
Okay. So now I'll share my screen and let me know when you can start seeing that. Can you see it? Hello, is my screen visible? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. It's really visible.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So today I'm going to take you through an extraordinary journey of understanding how the economy is connected with ecology. And why do we have this current problem that we are facing everywhere about climate change? What is it that our generation has done that your generation is going to face the consequences of? Right? And this is a very important question that you must be asking senior people like me, what is it that you have done to the environment? What is it you have done to the world, to the planet, that our generation is facing the threat? We will have to face the brunt of whatever you do. So I'm going to try and answer that question to you. Is what is it that went wrong in what we have been doing till today? Right, and for that we have to understand a little bit about how the economy is structured, how the economy evolved, and what are its connections with ecology and equity. I'm going to add the word equity also, because it's a lot about how we have distributed natural resources amongst ourselves. Right? Why have we made some people ultra poor, and why have we made some people ultra rich? Why is there no parity between incomes and wealth distribution between countries, not just within countries? So we will try to answer those kind of questions. What went wrong with the economy? So first, yeah, I will talk about, essentially, I'll talk about four things. I'm going to talk about the evolution of trade in human history. Then we will discuss how the modern economy is structured. And because you all are engineers and you have done economics in school or maybe even in college, I will just briefly touch upon modern economics. And then I'll spend some time talking about market failures. What has went wrong with the market economy? And then finally, we'll talk about sustainable development. So that's going to be the flow of the sessions today. And I expect around 40 minutes. 40 to 45 minutes is what I'll be present. So it's 10:50 according to my clock. So we should be done by around 11:20. And then we'll have some time for questions. So if you look at human history, and we have been on this planet for a few lakh years, for about 2.5, 3 lakh years. The earliest human beings, we were a bunch of nomads. We were traveling, we were hunting and gathering. The men in the tribe hunted, and the women in the tribe gathered fruits and uh, tubers and bark and skins and leaves, and so on and so forth, so many things. It was mostly not an economy, but it was about subsistence. It was about survival. So everybody in the society was involved direct efforts, in direct efforts. What I mean by direct efforts is gathering food, hunting, taking care of their children, taking care of your food requirements for the next few days, so on and so forth. Remember, at that point of time, we had just evolved the capability to cook food. So fire, we had already gathered the ability to light a fire and cook food, roast it and eat it, and we were able to suffice our livelihood and survival. For a long time, there was no economy. There was some exchange taking place. So I had a little bit of more fish and you had some eggs with you, and we exchanged our eggs. So there was what is called as the barter economy in progress, and that's what you see in the picture. People exchange stuff. There was no storage. We couldn't store food for over 3, 4, 5 days. That's it. So after those 3 or 4 days, you had to again go out and hunt. It was a very, very uh, life full of uncertainty. You were not sure about whether you'll get food, and we had to keep moving on. Over time, we discovered agriculture. And with agriculture, there were two very important things which happened. Actually, three very important things. The first and the most important thing was that we were locked to a piece of land. Right? We sowed something today, and we had to stay on for the next 4, 5, 6 months so that we could get the fruits of what we sowed. We could get the grains, we could get the vegetables and the fruits, so on and so forth. So earlier in hunting gathering stage, when we were a nomadic tribe, when we were continuously moving from one place to another in search of food, in agriculture, we did not have to do that. So we started leading a leisurely life. We built a permanent house. Earlier, we did not build any permanent structures. Now, after agriculture, we started building permanent structures. That's the first thing which it did. Second most important thing which agriculture did was it gave us far more food than we required. In hunting gathering, you could pluck a few fruits, you could kill one or two sheep or goat or bears, but you can't do anything more than that. You cannot store food. So what you gather and hunt is basically for 3 or 4 days. In agriculture, you could get grains which can be stored for a year. Yeah, you would completely free your mind off about food security. You did not have to worry about that. So that's the second most important thing which agriculture did in our life. And this surplus food also became the first instance of wealth. Now, if I have a lot of surplus food, I can exchange it with stuff I want from you. So I have a lot of food stored for 1 year for my family, and I have excess of that. So I can exchange it with something else which you've made. Maybe you've made a beautiful piece of art or a sculpture, or you can build a house for me. Then I can spend those grains on you, and you can give me your services. So the amount of surplus you generated was actually the first precursor of wealth in society. Thus, what became an important consideration of wealth in society was the amount of land you owned. The amount of land you own decided how much wealth you can generate. So the land ownership became a very critical, important thing in the whole business. And obviously, the land in agriculture had to be near sources of fresh water. So all these large civilizations came up near the big rivers, the Tigris, the Euphrates, the Nile, the Danube, the Ganga, the Saraswati, the Amazon. All of these kind of large rivers is where civilization started. The third most important thing which agriculture did for us is that it gave us a lot of free time. Now, once you had food security, you did not have to go out in the morning to gather food. You did not have to go out to hunt. You have ample storage at home, and there are other things which you can do with your time. We developed arts, we developed literature, culture, architecture, building, hydrology, hydraulic engineering. All of these technologies developed after we got agriculture. So, agriculture was very important for us to develop all these modern technologies that you and I are learning today every day. This became the most important thing of agriculture. Agriculture also accelerated trade. Now, because everybody had a lot of surplus, there were many other things that you could do in your free time. Then we were building stuff, we were making beautiful buildings, we were building public spaces, houses, cars, inventing things, and all of this was exchanged. So trade started growing in the community. But as you would remember, exchange, barter is not very convenient. You have a lot of food already, and how much can you store? So barter slowly was replaced by a medium of exchange, and that was currency. Currency became very easy to store. Very few pieces of gold, or very few pieces of copper, or very few of these cowries which you see on screen you could store in your house instead of grains, and then you could exchange these things with the stuff you wanted. So very slowly over time, the medium of exchange became the central pivot backbone of the trading economy, so to say. Fast forward to literally thousands of years. In modern times, a lot of these nations, these empires, did not have the natural resources, especially the temperate climate empires, the European empires, the Roman Empire, the English Empire, the British Empire, the Portuguese, Spanish, all of these. And they started going away and looking at other places on the planet for sourcing their resources. By and by, over time, they started developing colonies. And as you can see in this picture, the colonies started feeding the mother country with gold, silver, foodstuffs, indigo, jute, tea, coffee, all the raw materials which were required. They literally looted away the natural resource wealth from the colonies into the colonizing countries. And who were the colonizing countries? All of them were the Europeans. They were the Germans, the British, the Spaniards, the Portuguese, the Belgium, the Italians, the French, the Dutch. All of these countries colonized Africa, India, East Asia, South America, Latin America. All of these tropical countries were colonized by them, and they started looting for literally hundreds of years. Colonization explains the wealth of a lot of nations. The reason why England is so rich, the reason why Germany is so rich, the reason why Europe, all the European countries are so rich is because they looted these countries for hundreds of years. And this loot funded the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution, as you know, happened somewhere in England in the 1600s. And it is because that there were three things which happened simultaneously. You know, the discovery of coal, very dense calorific value, the discovery of iron ore. Iron ore we had already found by that time, but you know, iron ore in England around the coal fields, mines, they discovered. And the third important thing is the steam engine, the power of superheated steam. So we came to be able to use superheated steam. We were able to heat steam with coal. We were able to use the superheated steam in machines, and those machines were able to convert the steel and iron into various items that we see today. And one of the first things was the spinning jenny, which you see here. You know, the cotton was spun into cloth, and it was then sold to these colonies. So the natural resources were looted from the colonies, and they were converted into industrial products and sold back in the colonies. Cotton from India was taken to Liverpool, and dhotis were made in Liverpool and sold in India at a very high price. On the other hand, cotton was bought from India at a very low price. And that, as I said, explains the income and wealth inequality between England and India, and many other things, of course. Over time, as industrialization grew, as people started growing richer and richer, industry moved away from producing necessary stuff to luxury goods, what are called in economics as discretionary products. They are not necessities, but they are discretionary products, which means as a consumer, I have the discretion whether to buy a product. A shoe, it is a discretionary product. The basic need is something to cover your to cover your feet when you're moving out. So a chappal would do. But shoes started coming in, and luxury shoes, cars, luxury cars, SUVs, television sets, large television sets, air conditioners, all of these started being made more and more, for the simple reason because it was profitable to serve the richer people rather than the poorer people. So less and less of necessities were made, and more of luxury started being made. So this gives you an idea about how trade and commerce started evolving into the modern economy. And now we will talk about the modern economy. What is it that differentiates ancient trade, which we just saw, from the modern economy? The first and the most important thing is ancient trade comprised of biotic capital, biological capital. It was about biomass, forests, animals, farms, all of that. Modern economy was about abiotic capital. It is about minerals, metals, synthetic materials like glass, like plastic, like chemicals, all of this. So you would realize the biggest difference between the left hand side and the right hand side is that, anybody wants to say something here? What is the biggest differentiating factor between biotic capital and abiotic capital? What do we call it in modern terminology? We can make it interactive if you want. Yeah. The difference here is that biotic capital is basically renewable capital, and abiotic capital is non-renewable capital. Can you see me right here? Can you see that I'm writing on the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah. Okay. Right. So look at it. Now we are a modern economy based on non-renewable capital, which means it is continuously going to deplete. On the other hand, ancient trade was based on renewable capital, which is biological capital, because it continuously regenerates. And because it regenerates, it is not going to be finite. Ancient trade was based on barter and exchange. Modern economy is based on medium of exchange. You and I and your parents and my generation, we are all involved in not gathering food, not hunting for food, but for making money. We are all engaged in gathering medium of exchange. We don't gather food. It is about the medium of exchange. Ancient trade was essentially based upon human and animal energy. Modern economy is based upon fossil fuel energy. Ancient trade was essentially serving needs of survival, needs of food, of roti, kapda, and makan, while modern trade is about desires and aspirations. Ancient trade was largely an egalitarian society, an equal society. Today, it's about ownership on nature. How much land do you own? How much wealth do you own? All of that. Ancient trade was within nature's carrying capacity, and modern economy is about competition and comparison. It's not about how you can stay within nature, but it's about how much can you compete with somebody else. Let's look at how the modern economy is arranged. On one side, you have the industries. This is the industry, and other side, you have the households. The industries make the products which are bought by the households. So this is the flow of goods. The households provide the services which are required by industry. So I go and work in a factory. Your parents will go and work in an organization, and those organizations produce the goods. So this is the flow of goods and the flow of services in the economy. Now, exactly opposite is this is the flow of money. Because you and I buy products from the industry, we pay money to the industry. And because we go and work in factories, we get money as salary, wages. So the blue arrow is the flow of money, and the black arrow is the flow of services. So the blue arrow is the flow of money, and the black arrow is the flow of goods and services. As tax. Again, the yellow arrows are all money, right? So there's income tax, there is GST here, GST here, there is corporate tax, wealth tax, so on and so forth. And with the tax, the government provides us all that is required for the economy to run smoothly. So we get airports, railways, roads, metro, seaports, jail, judicial system, police system, all of that is provided by the government so that this economy works very, very effectively. Most importantly, what is left out in this picture is that industry requires natural resources, right? Everything that is produced in the factory requires natural resources. We need fossil fuel, we need land, we need bricks, we need clay, we need cement concrete, we need iron, we need minerals, we need plastic, we need fossil fuel, so everything. Look around you. I'm facing a laptop, and that is made of glass, and that is made of plastic. It is coming from nature. I'm sitting on a chair which is made of steel. It's coming from nature. I'm using a table which is made of wood. It's coming from nature. I'm standing on a floor. It's made of vitrified tiles. That is coming from nature. I'm wearing clothes made of cotton and nylon. That's coming from nature. Each and everything that is produced in the factory is coming from nature. That's the first thing. The second most important is that industry starts polluting. Remember, nature can decompose anything which it has made by itself. Yeah, somebody has raised a hand. Atharva, you want to ask a question? Atharva Kokate has asked a question. Atharva, are you there? Okay, I'm assuming you don't have a question. You put it up by mistake. Yeah. Okay. So what does that mean? That what I'm trying to say here is that anything which is manufactured in the factory, the nature cannot decompose. The nature cannot decompose plastic. Nature cannot decompose chemicals. Nature cannot decompose phenyl, fertilizers, pesticides, insecticides. Everything that is made in the factory, it cannot be decomposed by nature. Only natural stuff can be decomposed. So that causes pollution here. Thus, the real capital which is funding our economy is the natural resources, and the real cost that we are paying for it is the pollution which is degrading the entire natural ecosystem here. So this becomes the fuel for nature, and this becomes the engine which produces the currency. And currency becomes very important in this sector. And then how do we measure the currency? We measure the currency with GDP, the gross domestic product. You open any newspaper, you play any channel, television channel, somebody somewhere will continuously be talking about increasing the GDP. And this is uh, uh, is our obsession with GDP. We have to see the economy grow. What do we mean by the economy growing? What we mean by the economy growing is the flow of money has to grow. By now, you would have realized that when we are saying that the GDP must grow, we are also knowing for sure that natural resources will be depleted because we are using them up continuously to generate currency. And we are also knowing that pollution will increase because we are making stuff in the factory. So this is continuously going to happen if GDP increase is predicted. What do we take from nature? Essentially, we take four things. We take non-renewable resources, which are coal, oil, fossil fuels, minerals, metals. We take renewable resources, which is solar energy. Solar energy is a renewable resource. We take gases, water, soil, forest, fish stock, and many other things which are renewable. All that is required in the economy. We take global public goods, which is clean air, fresh water, oceans. All of this is required in the industry. And finally, we need ecosystem services. Ecosystem services are services which the natural environment provides free of charge to all of us. Primary food manufacturing, hydrological cycle, carbon nitrogen cycle, phosphorus cycle, atmospheric gas balance. All of this is a service provided by nature. These are regenerative cyclical services which are continuously happening in nature, which allow the life sustaining capacity of the planet. The non-renewable and renewable resources are the inputs to our economy, right? This is what is used in our economy as inputs. On the other hand, okay, so the inputs to the economy have an extrinsic value, which means they have a market value. They have got a valuation. The price of steel in the market is 100 rupees a kilo because of demand and supply. If the demand falls, then the price will drop. If the demand rises, the price of steel will rise, which means we allot a market price to natural resources, and that is what is called as extrinsic value. On the other hand, the global public goods and the ecosystem services bestow the life sustaining capacity on the planet. And they do not have any extrinsic value. They do not have a market value. There is no valuation to the hydrologic cycle. There is no valuation to the atmospheric gas composition. There is no valuation to flowing free water, but it has got an intrinsic value. Intrinsic value is a value which does not show up in the economy, but it is a value in nature. It is the value of that tree being there in that location. It is the value of that river flowing from point A to point B. It is the value of that mountain being there and being a habitat for the forest, so on and so forth. Thus, what we essentially try to do is we try to increase the extrinsic value of natural, renewable, non-renewable resources in the economy by GDP growth. When that is being done, the intrinsic value is continuously degraded. The ecosystems are degraded. Biodiversity is lost. Ecosystem net productivity is going down. We are creating a natural environment full of operational problems. This is leading to a better life. The GDP growth is leading to a better material life. We are getting more comfortable, we are getting more convenient, we are getting faster, we are getting beautiful. All of this is happening because of GDP growth. But because of ecosystem degradation, we are reducing the life sustaining capacity of the planet. This becomes the major intervention that the economy does in nature. So why is the market failing? I'll just very quickly take you through market failure. The first and most important failure is what is called as the tragedy of the commons. I'm going to explain all this in a little detail. The second is resource distribution becomes very uneven. right? The rich people get a lot of good resources. The poor people do not get access to a lot of these natural resources. Remember, natural resources were meant to be free and equal to everybody, but the economy doesn't allow them to be free and equal to everybody. The third thing is externalized costs. We have left a lot of costs on society, and I'll again explain this. Unemployment. We are creating GDP growth without creating jobs. And finally, inequality. And of course, the last one is the allocation problem. Let's take the first problem, the tragedy of the commons. What is the tragedy of the commons? Public property like mountains, like minerals, like fossil fuel, nobody is responsible because it is a public property. And therefore, we overuse it and over extract it. So this becomes a problem, that natural resource depletion becomes very, very fast, rapid. And with that, the degradation of the natural environment. Look at this slide. This is a list of mines in India which are completely exhausted. Okay. In Andhra Pradesh, you have the Bora, the Budravalasa, the Dasari, Korlam. All these mines are completely exhausted. Calcite, lime canker, quartz, feldspar, manganese, iron ore. These minerals are no longer found in these mines. In Goa, the Sakorda mine is completely exhausted of iron ore. In Gujarat, the Aditya mine is completely exhausted of iron ore. Mysore, gold is over. Look at all the mines which are completely exhausted. This is the tragedy of the commons. We are over extracting resources. Second, I told you about resource distribution. Remember what I said? Natural resources are meant to be free for everybody and equally distributed to everybody. But the economy does not allow that. There is no control on resource use. Do you want to use the steel to make guns? Or do you want to make SUVs and Formula One cars? Or do you want to make hospital beds? Or do you want to make Jaipur foot with it? Do you want to do something which is equally distributed? Or do you want to put it into the economy and decide whom you will decide it for? There is no control on this. Energy. Look at the thing about energy. I'll come to energy in a bit. As the society moves towards affluence, as we get richer and richer, the products which are made in society become highly resource intensive goods, right? Look at this example. You ask your parents, you ask your grandfather. We used to have one biscuit when we were kids, the Parle Gluco biscuits. Today, we have over 100 different types of biscuits. Each different biscuits in packed in plastic, in separate packaging. It travels all across India. It burns carbon dioxide emissions. All of this is there. We used to have one or two motorcycles or bikes available. Today, you have the KTM, the Duke, the Harley Davidson, the petrol guzzling bikes. We used to move around in cycle rickshaws. Today, I want to have a fully air conditioned cab. So, what I'm trying to show is, as the society turns richer, we use goods which are very resource intensive. This becomes a natural trajectory of every economy. Look at the energy used in the economy. During the Industrial Revolution, most of the energy we used was for livelihoods, for survival. Little bit for comfort and convenience, and very little for entertainment. Today, if you look at the energy, very large portion is used for entertainment and comfort and convenience, and very less portion for livelihoods. Right? This is the situation today. We are consuming electricity, we are consuming coal, fossil fuel based energy for entertainment rather than for livelihood. I'll show you another case about resource distribution. Look at this can of cola. All of you must have had a can of cola. This is a 330 milliliter can of cola. Let's see how much water is required for it. Right? Cola manufacturer in their annual report says that 1 liter of cola requires 2.03 liters of direct water. This is for washing bottles, for their factory, so on and so forth. Which means 330 ml of can has 609 milliliters of direct water. A 330 ml of can has got 33 grams of sugar. The government of India says that we require 1,500 liters to make 1 kg of sugar, which means in 33 grams, there is 50 liters of water. This can of cola has got 14 grams of aluminum. 88 liters are required of water to produce 1 kg of aluminum. That means 330 ml can has required 1.2 liters of water. Or add up all of that, 52 liters of water are hiding inside this can. 52 liters of water. How many Indians can afford this 35 rupee can? Very few. What we are doing is we are diverting 52 liters of water to the people who can afford to buy this drink. That is what I mean by resource distribution is skewed in the modern economy. Take the same example and look at the trail of resource depletion that we live. The aluminum for the can is coming from Odisha in mines which are located in Damanjodi and Angul. They produce the ingots. These ingots are taken to Hisar for processing into sheets. The aluminum travels from Odisha to Haryana. From Haryana, the sheets are sent to Aurangabad for the can production, where they have a can production facility. So from Haryana, it travels to Maharashtra. The ink is manufactured in Vapi in Gujarat, which is used for printing on the cans. The cola powder travels all the way from US to India. The sugar is traveling from Uttar Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra to wherever the cola is manufactured. The water is for the sugarcane is coming from the dams which are located there. The packaging is done in Pune in Maharashtra, where we have the packaging plant of a very famous company. The electricity for all of this is drawn from the grid. And finally, the sales happen all across India, where we require cold storage. We require refrigerators for this. Look at this. It is leaving a trail of resource depletion and pollution across the country for just this one can of cola. It takes less than 5 minutes to gulp this can of cola, but it has taken hundreds of thousands of liters of fossil fuel, transport, emissions, water, and it has traveled all across for at least about 6 months to get this one can of cola in your hand. And within 5 minutes, we gulp it down and we throw away the can. It's gone forever. That is resource distribution, what it has done in the economy. Externalized cost. Look at the deadly air pollution and look what the Supreme Court recently said. You're cutting 17 years from a Delhiite's life. Look at the plastic in the ocean. When you eat that pack of biscuits and we throw the plastic into the river or into the stream, it is going to go into the sea. We don't pay for the pollution that we are creating. The biscuit manufacturer doesn't pay for the pollution. The car manufacturer, I use a car and I blast the smoke into the air. The people who are walking on the road are breathing that air and their chest has got issues. They have got respiratory problems. I don't care. I have externalized that cost to other people. Next, we come to the inequality. Look at the inequality which this economy has created. If you look at this graph, this is coming from NCAER, the HH is households, okay? Million households. So 16 million population is above, earns over 17 lakh. 160 million population earns between 3.4 to 17. And 684 million population earns less than 1.5. Look at the resource distribution that the economy has created. Huge issue. Even look at the income and wealth distribution between countries. Look at these large corporations. The 2015 revenues of Walmart were $486 billion, ExxonMobil $269 billion, so on and so forth. This is not the interesting part. The interesting part is this. The revenue of Walmart is larger than the GDP of South Africa, UAE, Norway, Belgium, Sweden. ExxonMobil is larger than Chile. Shell is larger than Finland, Ireland, Venezuela, so on and so forth. These companies are larger than countries. And who earns that money? The shareholders. The very few people who own the shares of this company get rich, not the salaried people. Right? Similarly, you can look at many other things. Let's talk about unemployment. Automation versus manual labor. If you have your own business, yeah, let's say you get out of college and you start manufacturing something. Do you want to hire an accountant, or would you rather buy a software like Tally to keep your accounts? I'm sure all of you would like to prefer to buy a software to keep your accounts rather than hiring a person in house. We all like automation. We don't want manual labor. Manual labor is not efficient, it is not repeatable, productivity is low, but automation is all of that. Look at accounting, look at ATM, security, toll plaza. We have done away with people everywhere. We are increasing our GDP, but not with increasing the jobs. Look at the jobs, they are in dire straits. Economic growth has not translated into job generation in the recent years. Look at this. The GDP growth is 6.8% and job growth is 0.6%. Right? GDP is growing, economy is growing, but not the jobs. And finally, we have the allocation problems. All the tax the government collects, what do you want to do with it? Do you want to build more airports, or do you want to build better state transport bus stands? Do you want to give air subsidies, or do you want to make an SEZ? There is no reason to believe that. So what is wrong with this economy is that we are measuring the GDP. That's becomes a big problem. Gross national product includes all the income that is generated from accidents, from war, on terrorism, from diseases, from healthcare, from social unrest. All of that adds up in the GDP. And what it does not add up in the GDP is the depletion of resources, the pollution, the cost of displacement, the cost of health, the lost biodiversity, the species extinction, the natural degradation. None of this is captured in the gross national product. If we were to capture that, then we would get a net national product. We don't want a gross national product. We want a net national product. That will tell us how many resources I've got over. So what we are measuring is a balance sheet with one entire side missing. That is so stupid. Gross national product does not include the cost. It only includes the incomes that we are talking about. The last part I want to talk about is how the economy is structured. If you look at this economy, you start feeling that it's a nice circular economy. But the circularity is only in the generation of income. Natural resources to money is a circle. The money flows in a circle, not the natural resources. The economy is a linear economy. We are taking natural resources, making them into products, using them and throwing them as pollution. So it is a linear system which is disguised as a circular system. And this is happening so that we can increase the GDP growth. We can produce more money. And that becomes a huge problem. Because on a planet which is naturally circular, which is naturally decomposing, composting, nutrient recycling, we have an economy which is linear, which is not circular. And therefore, we are depleting our natural resources and polluting our environment. The non-renewable resources are depleted and the renewable resources are polluted. That becomes a big problem that the economy has. Finally, last slide, towards sustainable development. So what do we mean by sustainable development? The Brundtland report talks about sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet them. This definition is unfortunately not at all useful, because the biggest limitation is it is completely anthropocentric. It only talks about human needs. It does not talk about nature. It does not talk about rivers, about biodiversity, about life cycles, ecological services. Nothing is talks about that. It does not define needs. I am a rich person. I say I need an SUV. So, there is a poor person who needs a cycle. So what needs are we talking about? It does not define that. It ignores the ecological productivity. Like I said, the life sustaining capacity of the planet is completely ignored in this definition. It does not talk about life ecological. And this definition cannot be operationalized. If you take this definition and give it to the government of India, the government of India said, "Main kya karu? I don't know what to do with it." So instead of this, let us look at how sustainable development should actually be. So sustainable development, the term has got two sub-terms. Something must be sustained and something must be developed. What must be developed? We have to develop social institutions. We have to develop education. We have to develop healthcare. We have to develop inequality. And what should be sustained? We have to sustain natural systems, the natural environment. We have to sustain the food systems. We have to sustain the social system. And all of these are influenced by population, by the economy, by governance policies, technological progress, lifestyle, so on and so forth. So if we are unable to make policies in this, then we will never have sustainable development. So for this to happen, we have to work upon this. We have to work upon population, on the economy, on policies, on technological progress and lifestyle. And that becomes the critical understanding of sustainable development. Sustainable development, according to me, has four things. We must improve the quality of life, not the quantity in life. Not about how many cars, not about how many refrigerators, not about how many bedrooms, but the quality of life. Quality is qualitative, not quantitative. Second, we must create equitable material conditions. If I have access to a road, the poorest farmer in the remotest part of the country must also have access to a road. He also must have access to good education. He also must have access to good healthcare facilities. Equitable material conditions is what is sustainable development. Frugal use of natural resources. We have to minimize the consumption of natural resources because we are already borrowing from our future generations, and we have to minimize waste generation. And finally, we have a responsibility to maintain Earth's life-sustaining capacity for the future generation. We have a responsibility when we are handing over the planet to you. This becomes the most defining condition for sustainable development. And with that, I come to the end of my talks. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take a couple of questions if we have time. Yes, are you all there or have you gone off to sleep?
Present, sir.
Yeah, good. Yeah, just keep talking. You don't need to put up your hand. Anybody wants to ask a question, just go ahead and ask a question. Anybody has a question? I can't hear you. Navnath, I cannot hear you at all. Professor Mirashi, are you there?
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Actually, I'm Anjali Wagmare.
Hello.
Mirash ma'am is busy in some another work.
Okay.
So, if any questions from students, Zakir?
No, ma'am, I don't have.
Okay. Others?
It was great session.
Okay. So, thank you, sir, for your
Thank you
great
so much.
session. And students also have enjoyed it. Thank you,
I
sir.
hope they have.
Yes,
I hope,
yes.
yeah.
Sure, sir. Okay.
Okay. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
sir. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.